Actually, Captain, we don't need any supplies.
12 seconds later.
You see that dog in the background licking his balls?
First thing I saw.
But if any...
Cool.
I'm here with author and Phoenix. Yeah, I'm here with author and comedian Phoenix West. One of the things that didn't work for me on this show, and one of the reasons why I think it's a hard sell to people that haven't gotten into it yet, is comedic timing on the show. It didn't work for me. It obviously didn't work for you. But you had, you being a stand-up comedian, I've seen your act. You absolutely know what comedic timing is. Can you explain a little bit about the tone and why you think this doesn't work?
If I could try to explain why it doesn't work, it's hard to explain why jokes don't work. It's mostly, okay. It's Seth MacFarlane, and my brief history with him before we get into comedic timing. I'm not a huge fan of Seth MacFarlane. Family Guy is okay. It got really, really bad for a while.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of back to where it was before, but I don't know, it's never been an amazing show for me. American Dad, though, is one of my favorite shows of all time.
Oh, okay.
And the less Seth MacFarlane has to do with that show, the better the show is. Because he stepped away at some point to go do other stuff, like his awesome Million Ways a Day on the West, which is just hilarious. And when he did that, American Dad got really funny, and it just kept being funny after he left. So I don't really know if I like Seth MacFarlane's sense of humor. It's mostly just pop culture references, and that works for Family Guy. That works for when he was on American Dad. It worked for that a little bit, but it didn't work in his movie. I'm glad he didn't do that here. He tried to do the awkward humor here, like it reminded me of a Judd Apatow movie a little bit in this.
Yeah, that awkward humor. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'm not a fan of that either. He did try to do a little bit of that, but he could tell maybe the producers were pulling it back a little bit.
Yeah.
The
only joke that kind of made me laugh. I watched this whole pilot, and I'm sitting there, I'm like,
waiting to laugh.
I put my headphones off and I talked to my girlfriend. I'm like, I'm sorry if my laughter is disturbing your day. I'll try to be a little quieter. Put them back on. I was like, and I didn't laugh, but I got like a little blip on the little. I picture just a dead show. Oh.
A blip on the laugh-o-meter.
Yeah, and it was when they put the banana down and he goes, we need no longer fear the banana, and that kind of got a little bit out of me. I didn't laugh, but I was like, oh.
Oh, it's an anti-banana ray.
It's really interesting.
We need no longer fear the banana.
Does it work on all fruit?
What about salads? There's no...
That was almost a joke. But the rest
almost
of it,
a laugh, yeah.
Yeah, the rest of it's just awkward humor that doesn't work, and it's not jokes. They're not jokes. It's someone in an awkward situation, which can be jokes. Larry David made a whole career out of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you have to have your characters established before you can do that. Instead of their establishment in the show, in the pilot, is the awkwardness. Like the
Commander John Lamar.
Yes.
Or Lieutenant Lamar, yeah.
His introduction, I think they thought was hilarious, which was all he cared about was having soda on the bridge.
So our last captain let us have soda on the bridge while we were working, and I just want to make sure that's still okay.
Buckland.
That's literally all the pilot offers with that one.
And he goes, oh yeah, as long as you keep it under the desk. He's like, cool. I was like, that was the joke? That was it.
One of the things I thought was interesting about this too is, at least for me, I remember this being advertised as a comedy, and when you look it up on IMDb, it shows drama comedy, and that's because this show, and you've only seen the pilot so far, you haven't seen the entire series. I've watched all 2 seasons. This is my 3rd time watching the pilot, because I watched the first time, I'm like, no, not working for me, and then I watched the second time, I'm like, still not working for me, and then Nick Atam, who you and I both know through mutual podcasts that we've done, he's like, dude, just keep watching. Trust me, it gets better, Yeah. And as I watched it, it stops being a comedy and starts becoming more Star Trek. They start focusing on the stories more, and they tone the comedy way down. This pilot here, I'm like, okay, it's fine if you want to have a Star Trek and a Star Trek inspired comedy, but we've already got that from a wonderful movie called Galaxy Quest with Alan Rickman.
By Grabthar's hammer. What a savings.
And
it works better.
Works way better, like light years better. It's a TV show. You have to bring something different to the table. And when I'm watching the pilot, I'm thinking, Galaxy Quest did all of this better. Why should I be on board for this one? And
20 years ago.
This pilot came out in 2017, so we're already years past that. And I think part of the problem is when this came out, there were still a lot of different things to watch. Science fiction stuff, there wasn't really a lot of science fiction shows, but there's still a lot of science fiction movies.
What didn't work for me was the comedy at all. It was like the comedy was an afterthought. He wrote a Star Trek pilot and he wants to be in Next Generation, so he wrote himself into that. And whatever, that's fine. He can do what he wants. But then they're like, you're Seth MacFarlane, though. You have to put jokes in here. And he's like, all right, well, here's that. And he kind of phoned that part in. Because what works for me in this, strangely enough, is the serious elements, the stuff with his ex-wife. When it finally got serious there in the last scene where he invites her to be on part of the crew, that part was starting to work for me. And then it goes to her talking to the Victor Garber's character, Admiral Halsey. She's talking to him. That part works for me. And I was like, oh, interesting. She's the one that gave him the recommendation to become a captain. Okay. And that part was working for me. But I realized none of it was funny. So the comedy show wasn't funny and I didn't laugh, but the sci-fi part of it looked good. All the actors are fine. It's got Scott Grimes, who's also an American Dad. He plays Steve. But none of the jokes worked. Sci-fi worked. The plot was basic enough. It felt like the origin story of a superhero movie where it was like they have to establish everything and then suddenly get a little quick plot in there.
I was getting a little bit of flashbacks, which I think was the intent, to encounter a Farpoint on Star Trek's Next Generation. It's like you have to introduce all these characters, but then you have to hurry up and have a plot too, because the simple introduction of characters does not make for entertaining television. You know? So, and that was the other thing I wanted to bring up too, and I know we're going to segue into this more, but 2017 was like the end of TV-based entertainment where everything now is consumed by an app, a stream. Everything's streamed now. Yeah. So you had to sell this to people. You need to watch this on TV or at least record it or watch later. And you're trying to sell this to people who have already become accustomed to binge watching things, so they like watching an entire season at a time. Whereas this one's like, episodic in formula. And it's like, if this would have just been an episode of American Dad or, Family Guy, like we were talking about, might have been okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's like, well, that was a thing, but when you're trying to sell a completely different show and it feels like you're watching an episode of Family Guy or American Dad and not a very good one at that, it's a tougher sell. At least it was for me, because that's the vibe I was getting from this. And a perfect example of those jokes not landing is...
Actually, Captain, we don't need any supplies.
12 seconds later.
You see that dog in the background licking his balls?
First thing I saw.
But if
I
any...
wanted to laugh really bad at the dog licking its balls when he's talking to the guy that's down on the planet. And he's the Arbor guy, and he's talking to the Arbor guy and he's like talking about his, come down here, I got a problem, and the dog's licking its balls. That's funny to me, all right, because they're not drawing attention to it. But then as soon as that scene ends, the two guys on the front like, see that guy licking his balls? Yep, totally. That's the first thing I noticed.
Yeah.
It's dragging the joke on longer than it needs to be, and it's like patting yourself on the back for coming up with a mediocre joke at best.
Seth MacFarlane, from what I can tell from all the media I've consumed of his, he can't not call attention to it. He has to comment on it. It has to be said. You can't just throw it out there. It's like the opposite of the Zucker brothers. They would have gags in the background and nobody would have to look at it.
Airplane is drama.
This is Dr. Brody at the Mayo Clinic. There's a passenger on your Chicago Flight 209, a little girl named Lisa Davis, en route to Minneapolis. She's scheduled for a heart transplant. I want you to make sure that she's kept in a reclined position and that a continuous watch is kept on her eye.
I'm glad you brought up the Zucker brothers, because that's my style of humor. When you don't have to call... Well, for one thing, Zucker brothers did comedy that was not drawn out longer. It didn't wear out its welcome. Like, it was really fast-paced, and there would be multiple things going on at the same time, where if you blinked, you'd almost miss it, and you go back for a second pass and you notice another joke that you didn't notice before. I mean, for years I've been watching Airplane, and sometimes in my adult years I still pick up on things that I didn't notice the first 100 or so times that I've watched it, because they cram that. Now, I'm not saying that you have to do that style of humor, but I get what you're saying about awkward humor, though, where it's just like they're talking and they're trying to talk their way out of a scene. Ghostbusters 2016 is full
Very
of that.
Very important question that we're asking all of the applicants. Are you seeing anyone right now?
Seeing anyone?
Yeah, just for business purposes.
Business purposes only.
I'm seeing all three of you in front of me.
Did
something funny happen?
Yeah!
You'd never know it.
I respect the fact that they went out of their way to light the set, make it look like Star Trek and everything, but
It looked beautiful.
yeah.
Everything looked good. The ship's flying. He's doing a hug the donkey, which I didn't get that joke. He's weaving in and out
It's
of the
another
ship.
one of those awkward things where it's like, I'm hugging the donkey. Get a hugging the donkey. Like you mentioned,
I know what
this
I mean.
really good example of that humor that I can't stand is Spider-Man Far From Home, the second one. And then they're doing like a joke and they're just running it on. Like they keep saying the same thing over and over like that's supposed to be funny. It's like,
Thank you. New dress?
Yes, it is. It's a new beard.
It's my blip beard, because I grew it in the blip. It's blip beard.
I see. Yeah.
oh, that was my blip buddy. You got a blip buddy? I got a blip buddy. And then they just keep dragging it out and they keep saying it back and forth to each other. And they figure if the longer that scene runs on, the funnier it is, because you feel awkward because it's not really funny. But the fact that they keep saying it must mean that it's funny. And you're supposed to laugh because you feel awkward.
That
doesn't work.
Can work. Monty Python did that for years.
Right.
But they're also, that's what they do for a living. They were comedians at the time.
Yeah.
Peter Parker, whatever that kid's name is, probably can't pull that off. So it really depends on how it's done, how it's edited, and how long it goes on for, and what it is. It's very specific. Each joke has got to be specific in it. Like, there's 2 jokes involving Scott Grimes' character that bothered me because they weren't funny at all, but it felt like they were like the laziest attempts at jokes. First one was when he announces, when he finds out he's going to become the captain, he goes, all right, I want this as my Lieutenant Gordon Malloy.
Lieutenant Gordon Malloy. There you go.
But he's like, I'm going to hire him on. He goes, didn't he get fired for drawing penises on things? And he's like, yeah, he drew penises on a lot of stuff. And I was like, that you just said the word penis. That's all you wanted to do was say the word penis. You didn't want to write a joke. That's all he wanted to do.
And McFarlane has that kind of thing that he does too. And I'm not going to say that he's not ever funny, because some of his stuff has made me laugh over the years. You and I both addressed that. But it's like you can almost see in his face that he's holding back the laughter at how clever the joke is that he's written. You know what I mean? Like, this is so funny. Oh my God, I just said penis twice on a TV show.
And that was the joke. He said penis.
Honestly, my favorite joke in the whole show, the banana one was pretty good, but that was probably my second favorite. My first favorite is the fact that he managed to open his show up on a money shot.
Oh no.
God. With Rob Lowe playing an alien in full makeup. Now that's funny. You managed to get that on national TV. Kudos, okay?
It's because it came out of his head.
You opened up a money shot and it just came out of his head. That was great. Yeah.
There was a third joke, one involving that I didn't laugh at that, but I laughed at the banana a little bit, like almost laughed, and then I almost laughed when he goes, "You try to get blue out of a white lamp." That almost made me laugh too.
That was a nice callback. Yeah.
Because it was a callback. It wasn't referencing what we're watching right then. It was something. It was a little bit smarter than the rest. That was it. But the other joke I want to mention with Scott Grimes is when John Lamar, that's the younger guy, the one that wanted a soda. He goes to meet Scott Grimes first time because they're gonna be working together, and he's like, you want to make sure I'm not an asshole, right? He's like, yeah. He goes, so why were you out of commission for so long? He's like, oh, I filmed a porno on
the back of a shovel
for some drugs or something like that. And he's like, really? He goes, no, I'm just joking. I was like, it's like that. Oh, we're gonna do a joke. No, we're not gonna do a joke. Never mind. It felt like every joke was like that. Here's a joke. Nah, never mind. I'm sorry.
My problem with this pilot too is the fact that the story that they're trying to put out, in addition to introducing the crew and the cast, which is a heavy-handed thing for anybody to do in a pilot, which is why most pilots are usually like an hour and 40 minutes long as opposed to just 45 minutes or whatever this one. They're trying to have a story, but the humor drowns the story out to where I honestly forgot what was going on many times. Like, because I'm so focused on the jokes that work and don't work that my brain like mentally checks out because I'm drained from all of these jokes that I'm supposed to laugh at. And wondering if I'm just a buzzkill for not getting the jokes, you know?
No, they're not funny. That's why. I'm really hoping they're done with all the ex-wife jokes and how she cheated on them jokes, because they did.
I don't know how much you want me to spoil, but yeah, eventually that does take a backseat.
It better. They did like 50 in a row in that one sequence when he's talking to the what were the bad guys called?
The Krill, I think.
Krill?
Yeah. I think they were the Krill, if I'm not mistaken. But like I said, when they introduced the Krill, that's taking a back seat because we spent so much time setting up all of these jokes that just kind of run on longer than they need to, you know?
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to bring up too, and it just, you know, you being a comedian, I'm not. I'm kind of envious of you because you do that. And I wish I could, but I'm not that good at it. I see this as a Western problem mostly because I like a lot of British humor, and I don't get as much of that from like British television as I do American television. It seems like American humor jokes run on way too long, like a lot of them, and it feels like the longer they run on, the jokes start to wear out their welcome, and they become unfunny. Like perfect example would be a lot of the stuff that Will Ferrell does, like small doses of Will Ferrell on SNL, funny shit. Love it to death. An entire 2-hour movie of Will Ferrell doing the same joke for 2 hours, can't stand it.
Yeah, everyone loves old school. I don't get it. I don't know why.
I haven't seen that one yet, but I've seen some other ones, and I'm just like, oh no, just stop. You're dragging it out too long, and it's like I would rather have more jokes before they wear out their welcome than to just have one joke being dragged out. Another one that I thought was kind of funny, but not like super funny. They're trying to have a serious conversation, and there's a guy outside like trying to wash the window.
Excuse me. Can you just not now? No, we're talking. Yes, good. You got it. Good.
In a spacesuit on the vac suit outside when they're in dry dock, and that's okay. Like you can put jokes in a spot to kind of like relieve the boredom or the tension or something like that. You and I brought you on the show because you and I love Star Trek, you know, and we talk about Star Trek, and we watch a lot of the original shows, not so much the new ones, you know, that's not our thing, but
that's our next topic.
They do have comedy in like the newer Star Trek shows, especially. Not so much. Well, the original series they used to use it to end a show, which was like cringy.
It had the police files.
Yeah, everything always.
I'm not sure, but I think we've been insulted. I'm sure.
Yeah, everything always ended you know, it had to end on an upbeat joke or something like that. But the newer shows, like I want to say like Voyager, Enterprise, would have jokes kind of sporadically throughout the episode to relieve tension.
I wouldn't even say jokes. I would say it had humor. It had light touches of humor that felt natural coming from the characters in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And this is more characters built on humor than the characters using humor in the situation, if that makes any sense.
Right, because all we know about Lamar is that he wants to drink soda on the ship. That's literally his character. Thanks for introducing that character to us as the guy that wants to drink the soda. Now, I'm happy to say his character gets way, way, way more fleshed out as time goes on, but it feels like, you know, because one of the reasons why why I want people to watch this show, I don't want to get discouraged by the review, is it gets better. I think it started off as a comedy, and then eventually McFarlane said, you know what, I just want to go full Star Trek with this without getting any kind of lawsuit. So they brought in Brandon O'Braga, the producer of Voyager. He came on board. Jonathan Frakes directed some episodes. LeVar Burton directed some episodes. LeVar Burton, who's directed some of my favorite Star Trek episodes in all of the series. And you'll be able to tell when those shows happen, because you go like, this has got to be a Jonathan Frakes or LeVar Burton, and sure enough, you'll see those names in the credits. It gets better. it starts becoming where the humor, they use the humor as transitional stuff, and they focus more on the story, which is what I like.
Yeah.
There's multiple stories throughout the season, which is what I loved about Star Trek, is you would have an ethical dilemma, and sometimes you wouldn't really know who's right and who's wrong. You were left to choose, whose side you're on, and you would see things from different points of view. You're like, well, they're kind of right, but I can see where these people are coming from too. That's the stuff that I love about Star Trek, and this show definitely brings it in, but there's none of that in the pilot, which is unfortunate.
There is a little bit of what I like about Star Trek in the pilot, and that is I love episodes with the inner conflict. One person feels a certain way about it, and another person, the captain or someone, feels a certain way about it, and then they have to work through that together, and then one person always kind of goes, oh, that's what you're going for. And this one kind of has that, only they don't have that butting of heads other than she fucked a blue dude. Where
she fucked a blue Rob Lowe.
She saved their lives.
She blew his mind, Phoenix.
Yeah. She saves their lives by making the sea blow up, and it goes through the ship and makes a California redwood go through it.
Focus on Happy Arbor Day.
Wait, what's Arbor Day?
It's the holiday where you plant the trees.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't get that either.
I would have said, you got wood.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that is better, isn't it?
Ship.
Excuse me.
It was fun. It was fun to watch, but then he goes, all right, well, you belong here. I was wrong. That was a little touch of what I like in these kind of shows, which is the characters realizing they don't know everything, and it's called humanity.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, now I want to mention Star Trek Discovery, because I watched both seasons of that. I didn't watch the third one yet. And
I watched the pilot of season 2, or I shouldn't call that a pilot. I should say the season opener, or the season debut of season 2. They had it on YouTube, and I watched that.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, nah, I'm not missing nothing. You can't have a Star Trek show without an ensemble cast, and at least, correct me if I'm wrong, but Discovery is more like a character. It's the Michael Burnham show. Am I wrong? It all revolves around the main character. Yeah.
No, it's definitely an ensemble show. They got the cast figured out. Eventually, you start to like the characters, but it takes a while. Michael Burnham really isn't in a. She is the main character, but she's kind of not at the same time. She kind of gets drawn in the background as the seasons go along.
Okay.
But I would still say don't watch it. This is so far.
I just didn't enjoy it. It didn't feel like Star Trek. I'm like, this is sci-fi show number 674.
It felt like Zack Snyder's sci-fi mope fest. Like it's characters being sad in space.
Yeah.
And it's
a lot of crying. Yeah.
And it's basically she came from The Walking Dead over to this so she could continue crying.
Well, that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to get into it, because her character on The Walking Dead was one of my least favorites. I nothing against the actress. I don't have anything personally against her. She was just boring. Like, she's really boring.
So much so that when I did eventually I did, because I also do the Walking Dead podcast, I forgot she existed. And they brought her back for the next season. I go, who the fuck is that? I'm like, oh yeah.
They would go like 4 or 5 episodes without a character. It's like, oh, that's right. She's one of the cast. Oops.
Yeah, completely forgot. No idea.
That's not a good character. Yeah.
No. But Discovery is, unless you're into, I wish they would just call it Discovery. No Star Trek, just Discovery.
Yeah.
This feels more like Star Trek than the Star Trek Discovery does. This feels more like everything's on Star Trek Discovery, everything's super black and bright lights, and like it's very contrasty. This is more of a clean palette. Everything kind of meshes together. Everything looks smooth and clean and sterile. And this looks more like Star Trek Next Generation. All the buttons they're pushing look like that.
I do praise the fact that the show, and this is kind of one separates it from Star Trek, and I think that was by design, is we have a ship for you. They're introduced Seth MacFarlane, your screw up, you get this ship, this mid-level ship. Yeah. So many of the shows that I've seen, all the Star Trek shows, this is the first prototype of its kind. It's the fastest in the fleet. It's the bestest ship ever. Yeah. This is just a regular, average ship. I mean, it's beautiful. I love the way the ship looks and everything. It's great the way it looks on the inside. It's totally Next Generation, the way it's lit, everything about it. I love it. But the fact that they're not bragging up how this is a prototype ship that's going to revolutionize, they don't call it Starfleet in this, and this is called the Union, like the Planetary Union or something like that, which is fine.
Planetary Union starts with a C, the third word, not core. It says puck, pretty much. I'm amazed he didn't do it with an F. I'm just amazed he didn't do that.
He resisted that urge.
I purposely read it like that, because it's on the seal, and I was reading it. I'm like, oh, he did PUC. Okay, I'm amazed. Amazed. But yeah, Star Trek Discovery is the whole thing is that ship. It runs on spores, so it's a brand new prototype.
Once again,
having it be just a regular ship in this makes it better because you get that feeling when they come up against the ship later on in the episode that they're severely outgunned.
I like that too. The fact that in the original series it was the Constitution flagship was Enterprise, and then in the Next Generation, the flagship of the fleet, the Galaxy class Enterprise, and then even in Voyager, the first of the Intrepid class, and then as you're telling me now, Discovery. It's and then of course in Enterprise, this is the very first starship, like one of about two that have ever been made that are being launched into space for any kind of expedition whatsoever. So I get tired of this like it's almost like it collapses under the weight of its own expectations,
Especially when they made it a prequel for Discovery, because you're realizing before Kirk and Spock, they decided to make this spore drive, which runs so much better, and they can just blip across the galaxy in zero amount of time, and it wastes no energy. You're telling me they didn't keep making ships like that? And they realized that in the end of season 2, they go, oh, so they made them jump forward 600 years.
And that's why I was saying I wish that Star Trek would quit doing this prequel stuff, because if you want to be advanced and be flashy, go to the future where you can write whatever you want.
Well, I think that's why they went 600 years in the future. A, so it made sense why none of the other ships have spore drives, and then B, they can not have to worry about all the fan service prequel bullshit. They could just do their own thing now.
Oh, you mean Discovery? Well, yeah, Discovery is supposed to take place before Enterprise.
Yes, but now they're 600 years in the future as of
they did a time jump?
So I'm saying they had to write themselves out of a severe hole right there.
That's so fucking stupid.
So in season 3, that's why I haven't watched it. I was like,
oh god, that's so dumb. I didn't even know that because, like I said, I've only seen like one episode and I just did not enjoy what I watched. But this one, after I watched the pilot, I did keep going. I was like, okay, still not quite with it yet. And then I think it was probably about halfway through the first season. I'm like, oh, this is the stuff that I missed from the original Star Trek shows. The kind of entertainment where we have an ethical dilemma, and I think you'll see the writing start to come through in later episodes. And then season 2 just fully commits to being a Star Trek-like show.
Okay, good.
As opposed to being a Seth MacFarlane comedy.
Star Trek Discovery is the male version of that show This Is Us, where everyone is just crying all the time. Like, everything's the saddest thing ever.
Even though the pilot's a little hard to sell, like I said, if you can get past the terrible humor of the pilot, it definitely improves. But if you had to give it a score, Phoenix, 1 out of 5 cheese curds, what would you rate just the pilot on its own, not the show?
I was thinking about this when I was watching it, and I'm trying to subtract. Okay. I'm debating between two numbers. I don't want to go that harsh with it because I didn't hate it, so I'll give it a 3.
Okay. If the scale was on your show, that would probably be like about a 5 out of 5. I think.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to give it, is a 5. It was neither here nor there. I didn't hate it. I didn't like it, or I didn't love it, I should say. I liked the serious elements about it. So honestly, it was that part worked for me. I liked the look of the show. It looked good. It looked like space. It didn't look super cheap. It looked like an adequate sci-fi show. And the comedy is the only real drawback to this thing.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the comedy, I'd probably get a 4, honestly.
Yeah, it's if you're gonna do it, here's a message to people. All right, if you're doing jokes, and Phoenix, you can give your little message too, like pointers. This just as somebody that appreciates humor. Okay, I'm not a comedian. I don't write comedy. I appreciate comedy. don't drag your joke out too long, and don't have to show the joke after you've already or explain the joke after you've already shown the joke. The dog's licking its balls. It's funny. You don't have to say, "Hey, did you see that joke we just wrote literally 30 seconds earlier? Was that funny?"
They were one step away from going, "Let's replay that and zoom in," and then they show the dog like really close up. Like that would have been not unexpected in that moment for me. And it's okay to just have something funny happen and not draw attention to it.
Thank you.
You don't have to say, "We just did a joke back there. Did you see that, audience?" Oh, come along for us. We're having fun here.
And it's okay if you call a joke back later. I mean, you know, we've done it in some of our episodes where we thought something was funny in a movie and then we played it later. Like, let's watch that scene one more time. But we didn't do it immediately. We did it like later in the show just to show how funny that still was, you know? Like,
I can't imagine this show's going to continue for much longer. Like you said, it might not get season 4. Or
it's not. It's only going to have, and that's the unfortunate thing is you know, nowadays people have no patience, none at all, and it's because we live in a hyper fast. You know, everything's consumed immediately, instant gratification, wish fulfillment. All right, if you can't bring people on board with your pilot, and I've noticed that with a lot of shows, if your pilot is not your strongest episode, you lose people. The pilot for Breaking Bad instantly brought me in. The pilot for the Sopranos, The Wire, The Wire was fantastic. The Sopranos, Sons of Anarchy, those all had great pilots.
The problem with pilots for that sort of stuff is if it's not an episodic thing, the pilot's gonna be much stronger because that means they wrote the whole story. When an episodic show like this, the pilot's gonna be weaker because they're gonna figure out those characters as they go along because they haven't written the whole show yet. So, because look at the first season of Next Generation.
Oh, so bad. It's so bad. So it's amazing that show lasted as long as it did.
That's why I'm not judging this that harshly based off of the pilot. I want to watch more based on the good things I saw at the end of the pilot. I like the stuff with his ex. I'm hoping it just becomes Seth and his reaction humor. His reaction humor can be funny when he's just reacting to a situation, not calling it out, but like, he's saying a funny line here or there based off someone else's line. That's funny when he does that. But
the humor will be it'll be relegated to like transitional stuff, like we said, like when you're going from one serious moment to another serious moment, and they're like kind of in that awkward position, like how do we get out of the scene? That's where the jokes will come in. They'll be there to end the scene and then move to the next situation, which is what I appreciate about it. Made me want to go back and start watching Star Trek again. So that's a high praise, but. You and I both watch a lot of Star Trek shows. We know that a lot of times the first season is usually the worst one. If you can't bring that audience on board right away, you lost everybody. That's why unfortunately it's only going to get 3 seasons. So there's 2 available now on Hulu you can watch, and then we're waiting on season 3 to be reviewed, and we'll be reviewing as well. Phoenix, thank you so much for stopping by and talking about comedic timing.
The Orville pilot.
Tell everybody where they can find you, if you could.
Yes, LIWstudios.com for me. And we do other shows, LIW, The Twilight Zone Review, LIW Anthology Series Review, LIW John Carpenter Review, and yada, yada, yada. You can find them all on LIWstudios.com. Loitering in Wonderland on YouTube, and that's it. There's probably more, but I'll stop.
I am so excited for you guys right now. I mean, do you just feel like so blessed?
You think about the